before the first word was ever spoken, before bone remembered flesh, before blood knew itself as red, there was only silence. Not emptiness, not nothingness, but silence. The kind that thrums with potential, the kind that lingers before a storm. The universe, fresh from its own birth, expanded in that silence. Galaxies bloomed like frost across glass. Nebulae swirled like pigment spilled across a black canvas, and stars burned themselves into existence. The cosmos was raw, wild, a storm of light and shadow where matter struggled to decide what it wanted to be. It was here, in this silence, that the first seeds of humankind were sown. Not upon Earth, not yet. Earth was still molten then, oceans of fire rolling beneath newborn skies. No, the story of humanity began long before the planet cooled, in the hands of beings so ancient their forms blurred between flesh and energy, between intention and accident. They were not gods, not in the sense later whispered in temples, but architects of entropy, shapers of probability. They wandered not to rule but to survive, for even they, born in the heart of galaxies, were subject to decay. One among them, known later only in fragments of myth as Elion, watched the swirling chaos of a young spiral arm. Elion's kind were not singular, they were collectives, their thoughts stretching across frequencies of light, their memories imprinted on magnetic storms. Yet Elion grew curious in a way the others did not. Where most sought stability, Elion sought experiment. Where others drifted, Elion built. And in the heart of that curiosity came the thought, what if something fragile could endure? Fragility was alien to Elion's kind. They were vast, almost eternal. But Elion saw in the dance of carbon and hydrogen, in the tremble of amino chains forming within pools of volcanic glass, the possibility of something small, something temporary, surviving not in spite of fragility, but because of it. Fragility meant change. Change meant evolution. Evolution meant memory that could adapt rather than stagnate. Thus, the first experiment began. Across thousands of worlds, Elion whispered into matter. Not words, not commands, but nudges, probabilities bent, molecules twisted. On some planets, nothing stirred. On others, life flared briefly and died, unable to withstand its own birth. Yet on one small, unremarkable rock orbiting a young star, something caught. Oceans cooled, lightning split skies, and in the thin film of liquid that coated stones, chains of molecules learned to copy themselves. They were not alive yet, not truly, but they yearned. Elion watched as the yearning grew. Centuries folded into millennia. Cells formed, simple and small. They collided, divided, consumed, and sometimes cooperated. Cooperation bred complexity. Complexity bred intelligence. Elion watched, fascinated, as creatures clawed from oceans to land, as bone thickened, as eyes learned to drink light from the heavens. Many lines failed, burned away in extinction. Yet always something remained, fragile but relentless. Elion was not the only one watching. Others of Elion's kind saw the experiment and scoffed. To them, life was noise, clumsy, wasteful, prone to destruction. Why nurture something that would one day rise only to fall? But a few grew intrigued, and among them rose dissent. Some believed Elion had broken the silence, had tampered with the balance of entropy. Others whispered of possibility, that fragile life might one day inherit the cosmos itself. It was not long before interference began. Where Elion nurtured, others disrupted. On distant worlds, rival architects seeded predators so vast they could crush ecosystems. They twisted genetic dice, forcing fragile creatures to the brink. Extinctions became weapons in a silent war. Survival as battlefield, evolution as chessboard. Humanity, though unborn, was already contested. Yet Earth's line endured. From the ash of comets came new beginnings. From the death of giants came the rise of mammals. From the cold nights where stars were distant, fragile warmth grew in small fires. Elion saw them first in caves, creatures of flesh and bone, thin-skinned and shivering. They had no claws, no armor, no speed. And yet they built. Stones became tools, tools became weapons, weapons became symbols. Around fires they spoke, and in their speech came stories, and in stories came memory greater than blood. Humankind was not yet human, not fully, but the pattern was there. Fragility had given birth to adaptability. Elion felt pride, though pride was not a word in Elion's tongue. It was closer to resonance, a harmony that rippled through the silence of the void. But with pride came fear, for the others had noticed. Humanity was not the strongest of Elion's creations, nor the fastest, nor the most efficient. But humanity dreamed, and dreams were dangerous. Dreams bent the rules of survival. Dreams meant they might one day reach beyond their small planet and touch the stars themselves. The others moved to erase them. Cataclysm swept Earth, not by chance, but by design. Meteors fell, skies burned, plagues bloomed. Again and again, humanity was reduced to almost nothing. Again and again, Elion bent probability just enough to let them survive. A clan finding shelter in a cave, a spark of flame caught before a freezing night. A migration path revealed in the stars. Always just enough, never too much. For if Elion gave them too much, they would never learn. And if they did not learn, they would never endure. Thus humanity rose not through strength, but through struggle. Every weakness became a tool. Every loss became a lesson. Where predators had claws, humanity had cooperation. Where disaster struck, humanity had memory. And where silence reigned, humanity had words. Millennia folded upon millennia. Cities grew. Empires rose and fell. Humanity looked upward and named the stars, not knowing they were being watched. Elion's resonance deepened. The experiment had not only endured, it had become inevitable. And yet, within Elion stirred a question. Had humanity been created, or had they created themselves? Elion had nudged, yes, but only nudged. The patterns of life, the choices of tribes, the sparks of invention, those belonged to humanity. Perhaps that was the secret. Fragility had never needed a guardian, only a chance. Elion lingered in the silence of the void as humanity split the atom, as humanity whispered to the void with radio waves, as humanity built machines that could think in ways their own minds could not. The others stirred uneasily. Some withdrew, wary. Others sharpened their interference, seeding doubts, wars, collapses. Humanity teetered, as always, on the edge. But Elion no longer interfered. Humanity was no longer seed, but fire. To guide them now would be to cage them. To protect them would be to weaken them. They would live or fall on their own. And perhaps that was the true answer to the question, how was humankind born? Not by Elion's hand alone, not by chance alone, but by the dance of fragility and defiance, by silence and fire, by countless failures that sharpened survival into song. Humankind was not crafted. Humankind was not destined. Humankind happened, and perhaps that is what made them dangerous. For in a universe of silence, humankind dreamed of speaking. In a cosmos of entropy, humankind dreamed of order. In a sea of dying stars, humankind dreamed not only of survival, but of purpose. Elion faded into the void, their resonance dissolving into background noise, their experiment long beyond their hand. But the silence remained, watching, always watching. And in that silence, the first cry of a child echoed in a cave beneath the light of 1,000 indifferent stars. It was fragile. It was fleeting. It was enough.